Posted by you, Floraray. My husband is reluctant to be intimate with me after I was in a major accident. I, 30F, have been married to my husband, 45M, for 5 years and together for 8. Obviously, we have an age gap in our relationship, and whenever we discussed possible health issues or medical care, it was regarding him. About 4 months ago, I was in a car accident. I was talking on Bluetooth to my husband because I was nervous driving on the icy roads going to our house, when another car rounded a corner too fast and lost control. It was one of those exact wrong moment things, and my car went off the road and into a tree. My husband heard the whole thing, and my last memory before I lost consciousness was him screaming my name. I don't want to get into the bloody details, but I ended up being in the hospital for over a month. I needed multiple surgeries and have been in physical therapy ever since. I am finally getting to a point where I feel like myself again and am no longer in pain. I've gained back some weight and look good, if I do say so myself. My husband literally worked out of my hospital room for the entire time I was there. He went home to shower, sleep and look after the dogs, then came right back. He attended all my therapy appointments so he would know how to better help me recover at home. He was amazing and everything I could ask him to be in that kind of horrible situation. I love him so much, and so yesterday while shopping, I saw this gorgeous black lingerie set and decided to surprise him. We haven't had sex since before the accident, and every time I try, it feels like he makes an excuse or expresses some concern about some random body part of mine that is no longer injured. He was on his laptop in bed when I came in wearing my new purchases, and I could tell he was taken by surprise. I basically crawled into his lap and started kissing his neck and grinding on him. He was definitely hard, but then he lost it and pushed me away, saying that we shouldn't rush this, and he doesn't want to jeopardize my recovery with sex. I was crying by the time he ended the sentence and said, "I'm fine. The doctors say sex is fine." But he was already walking into the bathroom and turning on the shower. I don't know what to think. Is it the scars? Is the memory of me in a hospital bed unable to even sit up by myself repelling him? I finally am starting to feel good about myself and my body again, and the fact that he won't touch me is really hurting my mental health. It's probably a long shot, but has anyone else experienced this? TLDR. I was in a major car accident and I'm finally back to myself, but my husband doesn't want to have sex with me. Now onto some comments before the update. Posted by the Yajathakald. Your husband literally worked out of your hospital room and only went home to shower and keep the dogs alive. Your husband loves you, and this is crystal clear. Like someone else has said, I don't think it's him feeling unattracted to you, or scars, etc. I think he is seeing your body now as a very fragile thing that he almost lost. He could very well possibly be traumatized from hearing the car accident in the phone call and seeing you in a hospital bed for weeks. I don't often suggest couples therapy, but I think it would behoove him to help work this out with you in a setting like that. You're very precious to him, and while it isn't rational thinking, he could be terrified of damaging you in some way. SantaFake98 responded with, "Dude, this all the way. I got a call from my fiancée right after she got into an accident, and I still hold my breath every single time she calls me when she's out and about. It is traumatic, and I'm sure he needs some time too to process things. I still do, and it's been half a year. It's a stressful situation." We're adults responded with, "All of this. Also, have you tried just talking to him about it? Not in a, please have sex right now way, but in a, I think I'm ready to have sex again. How do you feel about that way? There's a lot going on here. A counselor would help, but some progress could be made by talking." Orionaro responded with, "Yeah, he was very scarily presented with her physical mortality and honestly probably has a lot of grief for what he went through too. You really see people in a different life when they go through bad things, especially those you care about. Maybe approach this kind of thing gently. Therapy, yes, but also maybe go back to just making out and peaceful bedroom things. Grinding and such can be a little aggressive, which can be fun, but I think he sees you as more delicate now, so maybe go more the making love route and take things slow and gentle and loving. I agree that it sounds like there is no doubt he loves her and is attracted to her, but his brain has spent months thinking of her very differently and being overwhelmed with concern. There is a certain lack of closure on her healing process from his side." Posted by Magicani_Han. I'm not a mind reader, but his reaction makes a lot of sense to me when I think about the last 4 months from his perspective. He heard you scream, and then nothing from you. Presumably he heard the crushing metal of the crash. For him, there was a period of time when he did not know if you were dead. Maybe he had to direct first responders to try to find you and had to learn whether you were alive from them. The fact that you were in the hospital for more than a month says to me that he was almost certainly told you might die even once he learned you were alive. The fact that he lived in your hospital room was probably as much for him as for you, because if he wasn't there, and something happened, you might die, and he wouldn't be able to stop it. It's very possible he spent that entire month in crushing fear, trying to consciously or subconsciously guard you from death. He almost certainly spent at least several days in that state. I'm assuming that the focus since then has been mostly on getting you physically okay. It's only been 4 months, and he's probably spent them all in caretaker mode. The thing about caretaker mode is that you push your own issues to the back. You don't focus on any healing you might need to do. Note that I'm not justifying that, necessarily. Sometimes people go into caretaker mode or stay in it not because somebody actually needs care, but because our own fear is too scary to face, and that mode keeps us from having to deal with it in the short term. For him, the trauma of being unsure if he would still have you tomorrow is still almost certainly unhealed. As for why he responded that way, people tend to store emotional pain they're not addressing yet in the body. Tight muscles, strained postures, clenching. People grind their teeth and bunch their fists under stress for a reason, and we do similar things to the rest of our body. That kind of trauma can feel like a physical spring, stored under tension. When you went to initiate intimacy and started touching his body in a way that normally creates a strong reaction, you added those feelings on top of the stored feelings but pulling in a different direction, and the spring destabilized and went off. You basically accidentally took the lid off a pressure cooker before it had a chance to vent. I think that's why his response was centered around fear for your safety, even though you're feeling much better and not worried yourself. All that trapped fear just kinda blew up in both your faces. If that's what happened, it's not necessarily anything in your relationship that needs to heal. It's just that he needs to step back now and take the time to face that shit down. I'd strongly recommend therapy to help him process. I also, on a personal level, find that crying tends to let some of that tension back out. I tend to use a Pixar movie to get the tears going. It sounds a little silly, but it helps some. Now on to the update. Thank you again for everyone's kind and thoughtful comments. I read all of them even if I didn't respond. Last night when we got in bed, I curled up next to my husband and held him while I said basically, "We've been through a lot. Would you be willing to get therapy with me to make sure everything is all right for both of us? I love you so much and I don't want any underlying trauma to affect our relationship." He was silent for about 10 seconds and then the floodgates opened. I've only seen him cry once or twice in our entire relationship, at our wedding and the first time I told him I loved him. But I held him while he sobbed for what was probably an hour. He kept apologizing for it and I had to keep saying, "Don't be sorry. I'm here. Cry if you need to cry." And I shed some tears of my own. It was an exhausting but ultimately extremely cathartic experience. When it was all over and he was able to say more than a few words, he told me that there was about 15 minutes when he was sure he had just heard the love of his life die. Then we got to the hospital and the doctors made it clear they would do everything they could. But the extent of my injuries was extreme and severe. Then he spent hours calling family members, waiting, pacing and trying to grapple with the fact that I might die, and he might be alone. Then I spent 5 days in the ICU, mostly unconscious. He said he's never known fear like that in his life. In the end we agreed to go to individual and couples therapy and even touched on the sex thing, wherein he admitted that he knows objectively nothing bad will happen to me if we have sex, but for some reason it is sparking this protective instinct that makes him want to treat me like glass. So, we're working on it, and our marriage is amazing. He's the love of my life and we can get through this. Now on to the final update. Hi everyone. First of all, I want to say I was absolutely blown away by the outpouring of love and support I received on my first post. I never could have imagined it would blow up like that, and I received so many thoughtful and kind comments and messages from strangers. That being said, when I wrote that, I was in a weird place. Physically, I had mostly healed, but I was determined to shove down any emotional trauma because I was so exhausted from the previous months of work trying to heal my body. I wanted to be alright, and I wanted my marriage to be the same as it was before the accident. My husband and I just attended our third marriage counseling appointment, and I'm very happy to report the exercises and worksheets we've been given are helping rebuild the husband-wife relationship instead of the caregiver-patient relationship which has been present for the last 5 months. My husband just had his first individual therapy appointment a few days ago, and I have mine next week. In short, we're putting in the work. We're also having sex again. Like, a lot of sex. I feel silly bragging about that to the internet at large, but it makes me so happy that we've figured out that part of all this. Prior to the accident and really throughout our whole relationship, we've been so ridiculously into each other. It was rare we even skipped a day. I missed having that connection to him, and he was clearly hurting too. Anyway, I just thought everyone deserved an update. TL. Doctor, we're getting better. Now on to some comments. Posted by Rouge Comet. I'm so pleased to hear this. Reading your first post made me tear up a little, and I'm thrilled you're doing better, and getting all the sex. The kind of love you have is the kind poets write about. I wish you and Hubs all the healing and happiness. OP responded with, this comment actually made me giggle. Early on in our relationship, I believe it was our first anniversary, my husband got it into his head that he should try to write a poem to me to express his love. It was truly terrible. I believe it used the words, boobs, turkey, and bodacious, in one line. I absolutely have the kind of love that poets write about, just hopefully not that poet. Haha. Posted by whatchamacallit, hey op. I've been thinking about your post. I am so glad to hear you guys have reconnected. It varies for everyone, but I understand intimacy being a huge part of your emotional needs in your relationship. I'm curious what you'd care to share about your husband's perspective, breakthrough, etc. on this. I think it'd be helpful for some to hear whatever you care to share, and if not or too private, totally understand. OP responded with, honestly, it wasn't some big come to God moment. A few weeks after my original post, he had a crazy long workday, so I made his favorite dinner, and I was finishing it up when he came in. He kissed me really deeply and told me how much he loved me and how grateful he was for me. Then he kissed me again and we didn't stop. I kind of thought our first time back at it would be more romantic than the kitchen floor, haha, but it was honestly amazing. Afterward we talked and he confessed he didn't know why that was the moment, but he got home, and things felt totally normal in the best way. We ate dinner naked in bed, and I honestly have never felt closer to him in my life. We're very lucky.